For some reason, there are a bunch of NFL teams that love overpaying for mid-quarterback play. You got Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence, who are some of the highest-paid signal callers in the NFL at the moment. But why is it? Why are so many teams obsessed with overpaying for mid when they should be trying to find the next Lamar Jackson, the next Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen? Why do teams settle for average, slightly above average quarterback play? We've seen Kirk Cousins make an entire career and a lot of money scamming teams, looking like a great quarterback during the regular season, but come playoff time, he melts like ice cream. Same thing with Dak Prescott. And I feel a huge reason why a lot of NFL teams love overspending for these mid quarterbacks is because they're scared to take a risk. It's hard to find a Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow kind of quarterback. But it's easy to find a guy like a Dak Prescott, a Tua Tagovailoa that can win you a lot of games, and come playoff time, you believe you have a chance to win with these guys based off how well they normally tend to play during the regular season. And they're not wrong to believe this. All you have to do once the playoffs rolls around, if you're a quarterback, is put together 3-4 good games of great football, which we've seen guys like Joe Flacco do in the past. But the problem with this is, more times than not, these guys are always going to come out flat in the biggest games of the year, especially come playoff time. Once you get into the postseason, you got to have a different mentality. And guys like Dak Prescott and Tua simply don't have it. They don't have that ability to flip the switch and turn it on when the pressure is magnified in the biggest stage, in the biggest moments. But also, even if these players do struggle in the postseason and these teams know it, their belief is the more talent we continue to give these guys, the better chances they have of producing for us. And although it is hard to find a guy like a Lamar or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, you definitely could do a lot worse than Dak Prescott and Tua. Nobody's denying that. For all of the Tuas and Dak Prescotts out there in the world, you got your Will Levises, you got your Kenny Pickett's out there. There is a lot worse that you can do with guys like Tua and Dak, which is what makes it hard for these teams not to commit to them. And for as many people out there who say that these teams shouldn't overpay these quarterbacks or they shouldn't pay them what they currently are receiving, what you want to do, another team definitely will. A team like the Raiders just traded for Geno Smith, who fits the definition of being a mid quarterback, in my opinion. He's not great, but you know he's not good neither. He's like a tweener. He's like a top 12, top 15 quarterback. And if you're within the 12 to 15 range, I consider that to be a mid quarterback. And ideally, you feel like you can win with a guy like Geno Smith if you have the right team around him. But you're capped with a guy like Geno Smith. You're capped with a guy like a Dak Prescott or a Tua Tagovailoa. You can only have so much success with those guys unless you're just an elite head coach, which the guys that these quarterbacks have coaching them aren't. Brock Purdy, you can say that the 49ers are going to end up in this conversation overpaying for what possibly could be a mid quarterback. However, Kyle Shanahan is such a genius when it comes to the offense side of the football. He can elevate a guy like Brock Purdy, who may be a top 12, top 15 quarterback talent, but he can have Brock Purdy performing at elite level. And I feel Brock Purdy is a lot better than what Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, and Tua Tagovailoa are at their peak, just because you don't go from being Mr. Irrelevant to leading a team to an NFC championship and a Super Bowl appearance and nearly beating Patrick Mahomes. Brock Purdy played well in that game. The only difference was the 49ers settled for 3 instead of rolling the dice trying to win the game, and they allowed Patrick Mahomes to do it, which you can't do. But these NFL teams are so scared to roll the dice on trying to find that next generational quarterback to where they rather just place themselves in mediocrity forever, being held back by guys like Dak and Tua, who you know are never going to be able to get it done come playoff time, because they have this false belief that if you just keep stacking talent and you keep giving these guys more weapons, you can win with them, and that's just not true. Guys like Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, they can do more with less. The better quarterback you have, the more you're able to overcome certain limitations. And guys like Dak just never show up when the game is on the line, especially in the fourth quarter. But these teams, though, they rather be stuck in complacency. They rather play it safe and have security than roll the dice on the upside. Because the upside to them, isn't worth the risk possibly of resulting in your team not being good and you're just getting dragged down by bad quarterback play like the Jets have been for so many years with Zach Wilson and whatnot. But with how outrageous these quarterback contracts are getting to within the next 2-3 years, guys are going to be making $70 million potentially. And are you willing to pay a guy like Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, and Tua that kind of money if they consistently don't get it done? These NFL teams are scared shitless of being bad. But the way I look at it is, if you're not winning the Super Bowl, there's no difference between you making it to the playoffs and not making it to the playoffs, because at the end of the day, only one team can win the Super Bowl. So therefore, you might as well take the risk. The Cleveland Browns, as bad as what the Deshaun Watson situation has turned out to be, I still don't knock them entirely for making that trade despite everything that he had going on, because they thought at the time he was still going to be the same player that he was in Houston, that he was the missing piece. When you roll the dice at the quarterback position, it's the ultimate gamble. And, moving on from somebody like Dak Prescott or Tua, as good as what it sounds aesthetically, you could be asked out in a situation where you're what the Cleveland Browns are right now. They thought that the grass was greener with moving on from Baker Mayfield. They kick him to the curb. They bring in Deshaun Watson, and they went from being a borderline Super Bowl contender to now picking top 3 in the draft. That's the kind of situation you can find yourself in if you don't want to keep rolling with guys like Dak and Tua. You definitely could do a lot worse than these guys, but you also can do a lot better. But if you can do better, you do better. And it's hard to upgrade at a position where it's hard to even find just top 15 quarterback play. That's why Kirk Cousins has made so much money scamming these teams, because they believe that with how good he always plays in the regular season, he can piece together 3 or 4 good playoff games, and it never happens. So somewhat, you're handicapped with these mid quarterbacks. Now, how can teams overcome overpaying a mid quarterback? Here's what I would do. The Dallas Cowboys trading for Joe Milton was Jerry Jones sending a message to Dak Prescott saying, Dak, you're on the clock. If you don't start producing within these next couple of years, we're going to go with Joe Milton. He has the upside. He has all the potential in the world to be one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He's an alien. He has great size, good athleticism, and he has the strongest arm in the history of football. That's the kind of way you go about handling mid-quarterback play. Once they get to a certain age, you draft somebody, you let them develop behind them for a few years, and then eventually when you just get fed up and you had enough of them, you move on and you go with the upside. That's the way these teams have to start playing it when it comes to addressing these massive overpays that they're giving these quarterbacks. And eventually, you're going to get to a point where some of these teams got to put their foot down. Eventually, you're going to have to say, nah, I'm not about to pay you $65 million a year. I'm not about to pay you $70 million a year. Are you CJ Stroud? Are you Jaden Daniels? Are you Lamar Jackson? That's the conversation that these teams have to start asking at these quarterback negotiation tables. If you aren't as good as what these guys are, we're not going to pay you what they're worth. And as harsh as what it is, that's just business. That's how I would go about it if I was a general manager. If Tua came up to me today, he said, hey, I want to get paid. I'll say, how you want a playoff game? Are you as good as what Lamar, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes are? Because if not, I'm not giving you what you're worth. But you know, with these ages and how good they are at negotiations and using leverage, yeah, people want to say the market is the market. Just because gas prices are high, that isn't going to stop me from going to the gas station that has the most affordable gas prices. Just because it's hard to buy a house doesn't mean that you still can't find a good house on a good deal for a good value. You know, eventually the market is the market, but that doesn't mean that you have to concede to what the market standard is and end up asking yourself out to where you're attached for 4 to 5 years with a quarterback that never is going to be good enough to get you over the hump. But these teams, they love stability. They love playing it safe. They love having a quarterback that they know can get them to the playoffs and nothing further, because everybody plays it safe in the NFL. But the teams that are willing to take that gamble, that are willing to roll the dice, get rewarded, such as what the Chiefs have with Patrick Mahomes. They could have easily said, you know what? We don't need Patrick Mahomes. We're good enough with Alex Smith, and if we just keep stacking talent around Alex Smith, we can eventually win a Super Bowl. But no, Andy Reid didn't do that. He didn't play it safe. He rolled the dice, and he went ahead, drafted Patrick Mahomes when everybody said he was going to be a major project, and look what happened. Same thing with the Baltimore Ravens. Instead of continuing to attach themselves to Joe Flacco, who was the definition of what a mid quarterback was during his peak with the Baltimore Ravens, they rolled the dice, they traded back into the first round, and they got Lamar Jackson. Same thing with the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. You never know how better you can do at quarterback if you never take the risk. But these NFL teams, they love playing it safe. They love being conservative. They just think about what can go wrong instead of what can go right. And that's why so many franchises in this league love overpaying and getting scammed by these mid quarterbacks.